Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I'm about to close out Atwater. I spent 7 years over there in Atwater. And next week, come starting Monday, I'll take you through the course of what happened in the last few days I was there. It's probably gonna need a week to share it all with you guys. But for right now, let's go back in time. Let's go back to the early 90s, late 80s. As if you know, people that view these videos, view this type of genre, I'm pretty sure you're already familiar with the history of the Texas Syndicate and the Black Hand. The Texas Syndicate, was started out in California. It started out as these guys from Texas was, for lack of a better word, getting mistreated or out in the California yard. When it comes to Mexicans, this is just my experience, especially the California and the Texas guys, they don't like each other. And it's sad because at the end of the day, they're all Mexicans. But like I said, the TS, they started out in California. They formed a coalition amongst themselves to protect themselves against the California Mexicans. I'm not going to be able to give you guys names and dates of when things started or anything like that. The story I share with you is that these guys were mortal enemies. They've been killing each other since then till now. In the feds, you will never, ever see a Texas Syndicate and a Black Hand walk the same yard. Right now, the feds have most of the gang separated because of all the wars that has transpired through its history, to the point where certain groups can't walk the yard with each other anymore. The Texas MA can't walk any yard with any paisas, vice versa. The TS, they can't walk any yard with any paisas or sereños. The norteños and the sereños are separated on different yards. Right now, when you go to transit, they're calling out your name and what gang you're affiliated from so they can put you in the right pod, because if they put you in a pod that you're not supposed to be in, well, you end up getting fucked off. Everything escalated out in the feds right now. You have a lot of different gangs coming into the system. The MS-13, they went up there. One of them ended up killing a Black Hand. So now there's going to be a war between them. And the reason why the MS-13 did what they did was, though they got that 13, which the Mexicans out here use it as for the letter M, they don't have anything to do with the Black Hand or Sereños or anything out here. They're their own entity. And to emphasize that, they had to make a move to separate themselves. Back in, I want to say late 80s, early 90s, a friend of mine was in Leavenworth, Kansas. Used to be a federal prison. Now back then, there was only a handful of prisons. Leavenworth, Kansas, Atlanta, Lompoc, Allenwood, Lewisburg, and Marion. So 6. And back then, for you to go to the USP, you had to be a certain age. You had to be at least 24 years old with a lot of time. In your case, had to been a certain degree of violence, or you as a person were somebody of certain type of influence. So these were reserved for, I don't want to say the cream of the crop, but according to our system on this side of the law, the life that we live, yeah, these were hardcore men. And even now when I left, people were still getting butchered when I left Florence. But the stabbings and the killings now don't compare to what it used to be. When you come into the system, the AW, the warden, the SIS, the administration, they know exactly who you are. They know who you are. They know who you're affiliated with. So when you get put on a yard that you're not supposed to be on, a lot of time that's done on purpose. Maybe you piss some prosecutor off while you were fighting your case, or maybe you've been disruptive in the other joints you've been to, so they want to send you to a place to teach you a lesson. Every now and then it's a freak accident that you're on a yard that you're not supposed to be on. Because when you come in, they strip you out. And most gang members, most people that are affiliated with any groups, they have markings on their bodies, tattoos, burn scars, whatever to identify who they associate with. And when you come in, they're taking pictures of you. So there's no mistaking who you are, who you belong to, who you run with, and so on and so forth. Like I said, the Texas and the Texas MA used to walk on the same, the TS and the Black Hand used to walk on the same yard until this incident that happened in Leavenworth, Kansas. What happened in Leavenworth, Kansas was a TS came on the bus. But that TS was no longer a Texas Syndicate. Somehow he was made to a Black Hand. That's very rare. So the story goes, and like I said, I might not be correct. This is given to me through a third party, but the incident that I'm about to share with you is facts that it happens. There was a few Black Hand in Marion. And Marion is a control unit. You're locked down, you come out to wreck. And Marion, at that time, was like the Smooth Now. It was reserved for hardcore individuals. But the Smooth Now today in Thompson, Illinois, you go out to a wreck cage and you're separated. Whereas part of Marion, yeah, you're stuck down 23-1, but you go and wreck with other people. It's not as controlled and it's not as safe as it is today. Needless to say, there's a lot of killings and a lot of butchering that goes on in those joints. Well, some of the Black Hands had gotten into it with, I want to say, the DC Blacks. And at the time of the confrontation, the TS that was housed over there in Marion with them jumped in and aided assist the Mexicans, the Black Hand. But he was somebody through the course of their stay over there in Marion, earned the respect of the Black Hand, and eventually they made him a brother. Well, at this particular time that I'm sharing with you, there was Gato, Black Bomb, and Peto, and a couple more other Black Hands that was in Leavenworth, Kansas. And the bus is coming. And the guy that's coming is the former TS, now Black Hand. Well, one of the TS that was there, I'm pretty sure it was someone that was upper ranking, that had the yard for the Texas Syndicate, approached Black Bob and them and told him, hey, this guy's got coming off the bus. He's one of ours, and we have to deal with him. Black Bob told him, hey, I don't want to hear nothing about this dude. He's one of our brothers now. Anything before that, any past history, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's our brother. So I don't want to hear a peep about it. Well, of course, when you're part of an organization like that, It's in your byline, it's in your constitution, it's in your laws that somebody can't just walk away like that. And you're not going to allow someone to walk away like that. Because if you do, it's a reflection on you. So, of course, the TS dude didn't let it go. And the whole yard blew up. You know, my brother, I call him my brother. He's a white guy. He's a Jewish guy that I've been knowing since I've been in the federal system. I first met him in FCI Florence back in 96, 97. I got out in 98 and ended up catching the 26 years. I was out here for 6 months and went back, and I was back and ran into him again in Lompoc. So through the course of time, he's an older individual, and he used to share stories with me of all the chaos and shit that used to happen in all the spots that he was been. And this is one of them. You know, the TS, they weren't happy about, they couldn't accept that their brothers became a black hand. But also, like I shared with you, and this is by no means any disrespect to any other groups or families out there, but just from personal experience, as far as the Mexicans go, the black hand is on the upper echelon. You know, they're a different breed. They're very dangerous individuals. And and through the course of my time, I share stories about some of them. But first, I want to make sure that I'm able to, because I'm friends with some of them, and I just don't want to put their business out there if they're not okay with it. So, anyway, things I share with you is things that's already happened, that's already been settled, whether it's on the yard or in the courts. The whole yard blew up. But prior to that incident, just a couple weeks before, the DC blacks had jumped this fence, stole a truck, a bulldozer, or some type of construction vehicle that was on the yard that they were doing. They jumped the fence, they ran the yard into the wall of the Unicorn factory and went in there and stole all the weapons. Screwdrivers, blades, whatever. I don't know what cause or what reason they did that, but a week or two before, they smashed through a freaking wall in the prison and stole all the screwdrivers and whatever tools and weapons they could have and try to stash them. Well, they locked down the penitentiary and did a shakedown. They found every screwdriver but one. Right. So anyway, they open back the compound, and this shit goes off with the TS and the MA. And there's scuffles everywhere. There's no fist fights. Back then, even most times, current now, when you're in a riot, when you're in a confrontation like that, when you're at war, when you clash, it's not a fist fight. It's not let's see who can beat up each other, who can hit each other the most and do the most damage. Nah, it's life and death. And every individual involved is literally fighting for their lives. They said it was Gato, Beto, and Black Bob on one of the TS. They had him cut off while everybody else was scuffling all around him, and they were butchering him. The guy that couldn't let the situation go, they butchered him. Finally, when the smoke cleared and they settled everything, the guy was put in a gurney. And my buddy was telling me when they rolled him out, there was still a screwdriver stuck in his chest. And he just remembered thinking, oh, there's that last screwdriver that they didn't find. There's a lot of histories between all these different families and gangs and groups in the penitentiary. And through the course of our episodes, that as we move on, I want to be able to share them with you, but I want to be able to be as accurate as I possibly can, and also as respectful as I possibly can. You know, growing up in a penitentiary, you know, doing my time the way I've done, conducting myself the way I've done, I've been able to build rapport and relationships with individuals, and we become friends. So out of my respect for them, I always want to keep everything in the right content, but also share with you the reality of the world that we live in. You know, we're not just sitting in our cell watching TV. You know, some people say it's easy to do time. You don't have to have any responsibility. But while you're in there, the biggest responsibility you have is to keep yourself alive. Welcome to the USP.